Finding a great gift for someone who's heavily into bourbon can sometimes be a little daunting and a little difficult. But in order to help you guys out, we've put together a list of great gift ideas that can make your life a little bit easier this holiday. Welcome back to Tipsy Whiskey Shenanigans. I'm Steven, and today we are going over gift guides for the year 2021 for that bourbon lover in your life. If you're watching this list, either you're a big fan of the channel and you just watch all of our videos, which we love you for that, or you're looking for something to buy someone who's heavily into bourbon. And sometimes that can be daunting. Sometimes there's a few bottles that you don't know if they might not like. So we're just gonna go over gifts that you can get that bourbon lover. Some will be things that they should have or they might definitely use. Some will be bottles, some will be non-whiskey related stuff as well. So stay tuned, we're gonna give you guys an amazing list of great ideas that I personally would love anyone. So to kick off this list, the first thing that I'm gonna go over is what not to get. This is something that most whiskey lovers probably already have, and they probably get them as gifts, and they never freaking use them. The concept of these is great, in theory. If they actually did what they claim to do, which I guess they do, they just don't perform as well as I wish they would, and that is whiskey stones. These things, they're supposed to cool down your whiskey without diluting it, which I absolutely love, because sometimes, especially in Arizona, you want your whiskey to be a little cold, but you don't want it to be diluted. They don't make it cold enough to make it worth it. It's a waste of money. No one ever uses it. I've broken a few rocks glasses because these are stones. They're heavy, hard glass breaks on rocks all the time. So honestly, they probably don't want those. They probably won't use them. So stay away from those. No one really uses. To move on to something that they might actually already have, and if they don't have, I definitely think they need, is a good nosing glass. If you want to step up your game in the whiskey world and kind of learn to tear apart whiskey a little bit more, maybe get a little nerdy with it, you gotta get a good nosing glass. And these are subjective, people like all sorts of different nosing glasses. I personally stick with the classic Glencairn more often than not, or the Copita, just because I kind of like the little stem, but it makes me feel a little bit more fancy than I actually am. So I don't really use that often, but if they don't have a nosing glass, pick them up a nosing glass. There's a bunch of companies. I just stick with the classics of the Copita and the Glencairn, but there's a lot of different ones out there. Just like you can literally go into Amazon and search nosing glass, and most of those will probably do a good job. The Glencairn is the golden standard. These are solid, but anything that kind of has that tulipy shape will increase their ability to nose with that glass better, so it'll make an overall better experience of tearing apart a whiskey. Staying within the realm of glassware, next we got my personal favorite. My favorite glass to drink whiskey out of, which is the Aged neat glass. These things are fantastic. They're a nice mix between a Glencairn and like something like a rocks glass or something, where it's not too tight here on the opening where you can drink from it, but you can also kind of nose off this a little bit, and it weighs, it's heavy, it's not some super light fragile glassware. So honestly, if I'm not tearing apart a whiskey for a video or something of that nature, I'm usually drinking out of the Asian or neat glasses. So if they don't have one of those and there's someone who likes to use like heavier glassware, but they kind of like to nose and they kind of just like to drink, I think it's an overall great in-between hybrid glass that is good as a rocks glass and also good as a nosing glass. All right, and moving out of the realm of glassware, we're gonna go into something that technically isn't whiskey, but it's whiskey adjacent, in my opinion at least, and that is coffee, specifically oak and bond coffee. These coffees are really interested. So if they're into whiskey, they probably are into coffee. I mean, most people drink coffee all the time, more than whiskey. I'm filming this in the morning. I'm drinking coffee right now. And that's really good. So these are coffee that is aged in X whiskey barrels. So this one is X rye and this one is X bourbon. They're honestly a lot of fun to get into. I got these as a gift a little while back and I absolutely love them. They're very interesting coffees. They're not my daily like sipper for coffee, but it's really fun, especially crossing two of like my favorite pastimes or favorite things to drink, which is whiskey and coffee. And it's kind of, you know, it's coffee that has that like funky rye spice on this one, and then the bourbon one, it's just dark, rich, like bourbon-esque flavors, and they're fantastic. So if you are buying a gift for someone who is into bourbon, they're probably also into coffee, and that's a nice in-between of both of those hobbies that is fantastic. And then another one that is whiskey adjacent, which these are kind of new to me. I've recently gotten into this, cigars. And I don't like anything better than these Alec and Bradley cigars, or at least these Alec and Bradley Toro packs. They're at like my local Total Wine. They're like $22, $23, and it's 4 cigars that are fantastic. And more often than not, I have 2 separate packs right here. They have the Tempest Natural and the Prensado in both of these packs, along with some other really good cigars. Like, honestly, it's a really good value. I don't know how they do them because the cigars separate are usually around anywhere from like $6 to like $10 a piece, and in these packs it's like $22 for 4, and that's a really solid deal. So I think those are fantastic. I haven't gotten a bad cigar out of any of these packs, and this is probably like the 8th or 9th pack of these that I've purchased. And the Tempest Natural and the Prensado are fantastic for pairing with whiskey. If they're into cigars as well as whiskey, pick them up some of the Alec and Bradley cigars. I suggest these packs just because they're a really good deal and they're all really good cigars. And I'm a little novice with cigars, so I don't exactly know everything. I just know I really like the Tempest Natural and the Prensados, and Blind Faith's really good, as well as the Kintsugis. Those are also really good. So, you know, pick them up some Alec and Bradley cigars. They're really good and they will not complain. They're fantastic. And then now moving on. We've gone through all the accessories or whiskey adjacent things. I have 4 bourbons that I think would make a really great gift. These are all differing price points, but I think these are all really good, and almost any like whiskey drinker will probably enjoy these because they're just solid baselines of good whiskey. None of these are higher proof. They're all sweet, spicy, all that jazz. Like, they have just really good flavor profiles. And to kick that off, the cheapest, $30, Makers 46. This is a jump above the normal Makers product, and honestly, this might be my favorite sub $30 bourbon. I haven't done a blind or anything like that, but I'm a hater of wheated bourbons and Maker's Mark typically, but there's something about that like herbaceous, bready, cherry, creamy, vanilla flavor profile on the 46 that is so good. So freaking good. So I think that makes a great gift for anyone, and it's also sub $30. And my next whiskey suggestion is going to be Sagamore Spirits Double Oaked Rye. And I know I'm making this list for a bourbon lover. This is a rye, but it's double oaked, so it has a lot of like toasted marshmallows, caramels, creamy vanillas. It's so freaking good, and these are like $45. It takes that spicy rye herbaceous flavor profile and it covers it in toasted marshmallow, toasted oak, and it's great. These are so good. Little oaky, but fantastic. And honestly, I think this is the exact rye whiskey that could change a bourbon drinker's thoughts on rye. And then Four Roses Small Batch Select. You'll find these anywhere from, say, like $50 to around $60, $65-ish. It just kind of depends where you find them. I've bought a few from Costco, so that's where I'm finding them for $50. And they're fantastic. Amazing, really good juice. It's soft, it's light, it's herbaceous. There's a nice spearminty note on that I don't get in a lot of bourbons. That's a lot of fun, but it's at 104 proof, so it's very light. very floral, very easy to get into, and it's, you know, a step above their small batch and their single barrel, in my opinion. And I just think it's a really solid pick. So, you know, if you're, again, that's like just like the Sagamore Spirits, it's just spicy and herbaceous enough and rye-y enough where it's kind of an in-between a bourbon and a rye typical flavor profile, in my opinion. So I think that's really, really good. And it's a fun whiskey to tear apart. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but again, really fun whiskey to tear apart. And this one is my favorite out of the entire list, and that one is going to be Knob Creek 12-year-old. This is amazing whiskey. Amazing, amazing, amazing. It's a little bit hard to find. It's around $65-ish as well, just like the Four Roses. 12-year-old Knob Creek, 100 proof. Amazing labeling. So like sex appeal, this has it all over. It's like the little wiggly glass that's all like cool and stuff, and it's really good whiskey. It's at 100 proof, so again, really easy and accessible. But since it is at that 12-year-old age statement, you're getting a lot older, darker, rich flavors on there that, you know, if your whiskey lover or bourbon lover hasn't had something this old and investigated something like this, they definitely need to, because 12-year-old bourbon and up is a really fun ride. It's oakier, it's nuttier, so it's going to be a little bit more aggressive, but it's a fun ride, and I think it's a ride that everyone needs to go on. So again, whiskey wise, you know, you can go with a classic of like an Old Forester Wild Turkey. Everyone's going to love those. I gave 4 bottles that I personally would love to get as a gift, but you know, your bourbon drinker or whiskey drinker might like a different realm of flavor profiles. So if you know that, you know, maybe do a little bit of research on adjacent bottles that they don't have. But regardless, outside of the realm of whiskey, just to run it all back, if they don't have it, tulip-shaped nosing glasses. H&R neat glasses are a great gift as well because they're just a great overall great whiskey glass. Whiskey stones, don't buy these. They're hot garbage. I mean, they're cold garbage because you put them in the freezer, but you know, they're still garbage. Oak and Bond coffee. And again, I'm not sponsored by anyone. Our channel is not even remotely big enough to be sponsored. So this is all just coming from me personally. Oak and Bond coffee, really, really good coffee. And it's really interesting. And since they're finished in whiskey, they share a lot of flavors with that specific whiskey they're finished in. The bourbon, very bourbon heavy. Rye, very spicy and funky. Didn't exactly love the rye, but I really like the bourbon one. But again, for the little, like, I think it's like $20 for like 2 of these. Very fun and interesting, and it was a fun experience. You know, I probably won't buy them all the time, but they're fun to tear into when you want something a little funky and interesting. Cigars, Alec and Bradley cigars. I like these Cigar Toro packs because I think they're a really good deal, and they have really good cigars that are great for pairing with whiskey. So I think that's a great, you know, whiskey. And then, you know, find a whiskey that you know matches their flavor profile, you know. But that's gonna be a wrap for this video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you guys thought about my gift guide. Let us know what you guys are planning on giving for gifts for that bourbon lover in your life. As always, also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and our Patreon. The link for that is down there below. We appreciate all the support from you guys. Cheers, y'all. We'll see ya later.